This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.
Hello and welcome to this week's Liverpool.com podcast. Myself, Matt Addison and Richard Garnett are both with you. We're not going to discuss the 3-0 defeat at Nottingham Forest in too much detail. We will touch on it a little bit, but we are going to focus a little bit more on something more positive, I think it's fair to say, this season for Liverpool, which is the Champions League ahead of tomorrow night's game with PSV at Anfield. Before we get stuck into it, though, don't forget to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan. You can go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. That link gives you 4 extra months on top of the 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. As ever, the link is in the podcast episode description box below. As I say, Rich, we're not going to dwell too much on what happened on Saturday. I don't think anybody listening or watching wants us to do that. But it really wasn't good, was it? I mean, Virgil van Dijk was asked at the end of the game, was that as bad as it's got for Liverpool? It certainly felt like that inside Anfield, didn't it?
Certainly in terms of the gravity of the result. I don't think they were too bad in the first half, but as soon as they've gone a goal behind, it seems to be adversity is something that they can't appear to deal with. And it kind of all unravels from there, really. And then once you start chopping and changing the side and taking off defenders and lobbing more attackers on, it doesn't appear to be any sort of plan. And fair play to Nottingham Forest, because they came with a plan and executed it pretty much to a T. And as the game wore on, it was pretty apparent that they were quite happy to defend their 18-yard box all day. You know what I mean? We weren't really penetrating them, and really it was a comfortable result for Nottingham Forest in the end, which if that doesn't send alarm bells ringing, I don't know what will.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't good. I mean, it just feels really worrying, I think, at the moment, that as soon as Liverpool go a goal down, you kind of know that the referee might as well just blow the whistle and end the game there. It never really felt like they were going to come back into it. It just felt that it got worse and worse, really. And I think for me, more than anybody else, I think Ibrahim Konate probably sums that up the best in the way that he's playing at the moment. I actually thought, similar to Liverpool, like what you just said there, first 20, 25 minutes, I thought he was pretty good, but then one mistake gets made and then just seems to collapse. So it's a mental thing, isn't it? As much as anything else, we know these players are good. We know that they can string together performances, but it just seems so easy at the moment to just bruise them slightly, and suddenly that just knocks them completely off track. And I mean, if the stats sum it up as well, Liverpool haven't earned any points this season when they have conceded first or gone behind in a game. I mean, that can't continue as much as anything else. It just feels like a complete hammer blow at the moment for Liverpool to go a goal down. Now, we'll come on to PSV in a second and hope in that game that Liverpool don't do that. But at some point, they are going to have to come from behind and win a game. I think they did it enough times last season to suggest that it should be possible. It just feels a little bit weird at the moment. It's hard to explain, isn't it? Why did they get so knocked? And the confidence is just shot so easily. It really doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, apart from coming from behind to win a game, I think they need to win a game for starters. You know what I mean? I mean, what are we looking at? What is it? 8 defeats in the last 11, I think, is it? And 6 league defeats in the last 7 matches. I mean, that's absolutely dreadful form, isn't it? And you know, the manager has plenty of credit in the bank for because of what he's achieved in his short time at Anfield, but you can't escape the enormity of how bad these results are. And there is obviously there's fundamental issues, but there are many issues, isn't there? That's the problem, isn't it? We're not talking about 1 or 2 issues here. The mental issue is definitely something that's there at the moment. There's a complete lack of confidence, and any as I say, any sort of setback seems to be something that they can't overcome. And I guess in a way, Konate is kind of the fall guy for that, because he has been under a lot of scrutiny because his performances really are indicative of that exact thing, aren't they? Any sort of setback, any sort of unrest, and he's kind of fallen apart a little bit, which is Maybe maybe he has come in for a little bit too much criticism. You could argue, but I'm afraid that has been sort of borne out by the goals that Liverpool have conceded. I think we've conceded 20 goals. Sorry, I was just having a look at the league table. Let's look quite far down to find Liverpool stats there. They've conceded 20 goals and scored 18. 12 games into the season. I don't recall a time I can remember a set of statistics that look like that following the Reds in my many years. So there are many issues across the park, but I really feel like the first and foremost really need to sort the back line out and their actual defensive shape, and not just the players that are playing in defence, but obviously the way they're being covered by midfielders and even the job of the forwards as well, in order to prevent attacks from having to be faced on such a frequent basis, because there doesn't appear to be any sort of solidity at the moment, and it's not being helped by the fact that the back four that finishes the game is never the one that starts it. And we've seen a few examples recently of three of the back four not finishing the match. If you look at Arsenal, obviously I'm not a favour of how often they change the back line, but they've only conceded 6 goals all season. So it's night and day. Until Liverpool are keeping clean sheets and limiting the amount that are going in the net, they've got no hope. So that needs to be sort of for me the bedrock of what Liverpool need to do, and we haven't even touched on the issues or the selection issues at the other end of the pitch yet.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, I worked it out a couple of days ago. If they carry on conceding at the same rate, they'll concede 63 in the Premier League across a 38-game season, which is 2 less than what Tottenham conceded last season, and they, of course, finished 17th under Ange Postecoglou. So it's not particularly going well for Liverpool in that respect at the moment. But as you say, it's not just the defence. Obviously, Konate is having a bit of a tough time. We've spoken enough times about the fullbacks. Milos Kerkez, I thought, was all right, actually, against Nottingham Forest. Certainly not the worst player on the pitch for Liverpool by any stretch. But it does feel a bit of a collective. I saw Graham Souness, speaking to the Echo this week, said the midfield is the issue. I think I'm on the same page as you with the forward line discussion of that's probably not quite working as well. Dominic Szoboszlai was switched out to right back, which I thought, again, he did pretty well in that position, and we've seen a few times this season that he can do that. But obviously, if you've got Szoboszlai at right back, unfortunately, you don't have another Szoboszlai to play midfield, and then you miss him in that position. So it's all a bit of a knock-on effect at the moment, isn't it? But Gary Neville was talking about trying to play 4 centre-backs across the back four as Arsenal do. I can see a big problem in that Liverpool don't have 4 centre-backs to do that. But, I mean, is that the way forward, do you think, to go really pragmatic, change the way that Liverpool are playing, maybe just sit, a couple of banks of 4 and try and counter-attack, or is that just too short-term to start thinking about for Arne Slot?
Yeah, I think that sounds a bit drastic, to be honest, 4 across the back. Didn't Everton used to do that as well? I can't remember which manager it was under now. It might be Mike Walker or the guy from Rangers. But I don't. We don't have to worry about that because we haven't got 4 centre backs or 4 fit centre backs. So no worries there. I mean, I know Gomez has had some fitness issues. I don't think he trained much last week, but he obviously is struggling to get into a side that is struggling. So that's a little bit of a concern. In terms of solidity, if you haven't got Bradley and you haven't got Frimpong, I'd certainly like to see him given an opportunity in this side. I don't think he'd do any worse than what's gone before him. Certainly if you've leaked, 20 goals in 12 games. And then that allows Szoboszlai, who's probably on balance being Liverpool's best player so far this season, to do what he does in midfield, which is where we desperately need energy, because whereas we've got problems at the back, we've got problems in midfield, we've got problems up front. Kerkez, who I've been very critical of, did have a better game, I think, on Saturday. However, what's he bringing to the party? Well, we saw with Bournemouth, he can put great crosses in from that left-hand side when given the opportunity. He put one in early doors on Saturday, but after that, he appeared to be almost I don't want to say an inverted fullback, but he seemed to be in the channel more than he was ever out wide. He was not getting the ball out there, and there wasn't a lot coming from that left-hand side. Whether, Liverpool were looking for it or not, I don't know. But again, that was an issue. We weren't really utilising his strengths, and, playing Dominic Szoboszlai at right back is certainly not utilising his strengths, is it? So I think we need to, look at the players we've got available for these positions. Calvin Ramsey, we've barely seen. I think he could be another option. It probably feels like a bit of a risk for Slot because we in a team that's struggling. He is really untested. Only played a couple of games, didn't particularly impress in either of the ones that he's paid him. But he was recruited by Liverpool and surely he's going to deserve an opportunity at some point, especially with the sort of two other right backs out of the picture. So I just think we probably just need to be a bit more pragmatic in terms of ensuring that we don't leak goals. Enjoy defending more. Just be a bit more dogged. You know what I mean? It all seems a bit slack. It's all a bit loose. And that's not necessarily a formation thing, and it shouldn't be a personnel thing as well. It should just be a case of enjoying the art of defending and building a base from there. And all sounds a bit Gerard Houllier, who used to have a very solid defensive line and sort of defensive midfield bedrock, you could say. And I just think at the moment that's what Liverpool need to do. It might be a little bit less pretty for a little while, but for God's sake, please stop conceding goals.
Yeah, just win some duels, I think, is the message, isn't it? I mean, that's what Arne Slot spent most of the first few months of his Liverpool career talking about duels, and that was why he apparently didn't fancy Gerald Quansah. That's why he took him off on the first game of last season. I mean, you could take off pretty much every outfield player for Liverpool at the weekend if you're going on that basis. The one with Cody Gakpo in particular, I think, frustrated quite a few people in the crowd when he kind of pulled out of a tackle. I think you do just need, at times, it does sound a bit simplistic and it does sound a bit Roy Keane, but maybe for just somebody to go in and just go through someone and win the ball. And I'm not, suggesting that you go in and get yourself sent off or anything like that, but to get the crowd up and just to rile up the teammates around you, I think that would help.
Football's a simple game, isn't it? You can overcomplicate it, and the modern landscape does overcomplicate it. You know what I mean? And it makes compelling content. We analyze statistics and tactics and everything else, but at the end of the day, there's a lot to be said for going out there and leaving a marker on your opponents, getting the crowd up, and creating a team spirit where losing isn't really an option. We're not in that mindset at the moment. There's another team from Merseyside who faced adversity last night and came away with a victory, and that's as big as compliment as I'm going to pay them within this podcast. But that is indicative of a team spirit that's working and a fight for each other mentality, and it wouldn't be too bad an idea to try and replicate a little bit of that at the moment to get us going in the right direction.
Fight for each other or fight each other. That was the question.
Well, I remember Steve McManaman and Bruce Grobbelaar coming to blows a long time ago at Goodison Park, actually. But we maybe don't want to see that. But certainly the passion that represents wouldn't go amiss.
Yes, absolutely. Wouldn't recommend Ibrahim Konate to start slapping his centre-back partner, but yeah,
I wouldn't slap Ibrahim Konate, I can tell you.
Well, let's look ahead then. I said at the start we wouldn't spend too much time talking about Nottingham Forest, and we've just spent 14 minutes dissecting it and discussing it. But let's sort of move the conversation forward to PSV and the Champions League in general. I mean, we don't know in detail exactly what PSV are going to do, but I suspect it's probably not going to rely on set pieces, long throws, winning your battles. The European Cup this season does seem to have suited Liverpool a little bit better. Whether it will make any difference if they can perform well against PSV to what happens at the weekend against West Ham, I would have some doubts over that. But I mean, PSV feels like a decent home game for Liverpool, really, to put a bit of a marker down in terms of not just the sort of place in the Champions League where they've set themselves up quite nicely, I think, at this point in the tournament, but just to play a bit of a game that suits them a little bit more at the moment, which in the Premier League, it seems like every game is not one that is well suited to Liverpool. In the Champions League, it has been a little bit different so far.
Yeah, and it appears to be because they don't have to play Premier League teams, not at this stage of the competition anyway. Obviously, the performance against Real Madrid is one we could probably put in isolation because it was arguably Liverpool's best performance of the season. I would say, certainly in terms of team ethic, against a top European side, a team that's used to winning that competition regularly. But if you look at the other games they've played, maybe got a little lucky against Atletico, Galatasaray they lost, another defeat, and Frankfurt were absolutely useless. So I'm hoping PSV will be more Frankfurt than Galatasaray. But the bottom line is that a lot of the Premier League teams that Liverpool have come up against for the majority of the season so far, certainly past that winning run at the start, seems to have had the measure of Liverpool's tactics and have found a way to get results against them. That doesn't appear to have been the case yet in the Champions League, and obviously that gives you hope, certainly at home as well, of picking up a good result. I don't know a great deal about the current PSV team. They've won 1, drawn 2, and lost 1, so they got a pretty average record at this stage of the group stages, and Liverpool will be heavy favourites to win the match, but they've got to go out there and do it. And let's be clear, they really do need a victory, even if you take away the fact that it will obviously help cement Liverpool's position in the top 8 of the Champions League group stage. A victory is vital just to stop this sort of barren run of never-ending defeats that seems to have carried on for longer than anyone could have envisaged. And get the fans back on side as well. I mean, I don't know about you, Matt, but there's been plenty of tickets knocking around in my circles for tomorrow's game, which tells you all you need to know about what people think of the sort of the current situation, and they really need to give the fans something to cheer about and get back on side. And I do think a result like Saturday's, a 3-0 defeat to Nottingham Forest is something that really does demand a reaction. They probably had a bit too long to stew over the City results, which in isolation, although it wasn't a great performance by any stretch, is but it is a result that can happen. People can go to Man City and get beaten, get well beaten. But they probably had too long to stew on that, too much of a delay, maybe not enough work with the team in between with the international break, a pretty dramatic international break at that as well, and not really been able to react to it when they've come back against a rejuvenated Nottingham Forest. But there's no excuses this time, is there? They need a reaction, and there's pressure on to deliver it.
Yeah, I would definitely expect a reaction. I'd expect a couple of changes to the team as well, not just obviously because of a second successive 3-0 defeat in the Premier League, but also just the number of games that are coming up. We spoke about Joe Gomez for the last couple of weeks, actually, on this podcast. I think he's probably one that would put himself in contention to come into this. Hugo Ekitike as well. I have to wonder how that conversation went when he was left out at the weekend. Obviously in favour of Alexander Isak. Arne Slot explained in his press conference before the game and a little bit afterwards as well about the idea with Isak is basically he's going to have to play even though he's not fit, because that's the only way that you can get some match sharpness into him. But I mean, Hugo Ekitike, I think, probably didn't take it too well, I suspect. Certainly if I was him, I wouldn't have took that too well in terms of the form that he has been in at the start of his Liverpool career. There's probably not too many other changes that you can make apart from that, but are you expecting Isak and maybe a little bit more of a question mark over Gomez to come into the team? Are you expecting to see both of those players on the team sheet tomorrow night?
I'm not too sure on Gomez. I would like to see him play, but every time I've said that, he hasn't so far. So unless the manager's had a bit of a change of heart on him, or he thinks he's fitter now, then maybe we will. I mean, he did sort of hint that there was a lot of games coming up, and Joe Gomez hasn't got the track record to play in all of them. So that in its sense, I guess, kind of hints that he might be involved. tomorrow, given that he wasn't on Saturday. So yeah, maybe we will see him on that basis. I would like to see Isak and Ekitike tomorrow, with Ekitike maybe playing wide left. I understand what you're saying about Isak. He hasn't looked great. Let's be honest. We made 2 record signings in the summer, and they've got 1 goal between them so far. I mean, I don't want to work out the return on investment for that at this early stage, because it's quite ugly. So, but we need more in that sense, and we already know there's no Verts, or expect there not to be any Verts, because he's not trained on Tuesday. So, I would like to see Ekitike on the left and Isak through the middle, and Szoboszlai back in midfield, and with a rigid defense in mind, see what they can do, and go out there and prove what the big fuss is about. The only thing I would say on Ekitike, who, by the way, I absolutely love, he's definitely been Liverpool's best summer signing so far on what we've seen. He's only scored once for Liverpool in any competition since September the 23rd, which was when he got sent off for scoring a 1-yard tap-in against Southampton in the League Cup. And his only goal in that time has come against a pretty dreadful Frankfurt side. He scored once for France in the international break, and his last league goal was against Everton on the 20th of September. So although he made a flying start to his Liverpool career, he's not exactly banging the goals in either. So that's an issue as well to contend with, as well as trying to get Isak properly off the mark. Again, I think he scored against Southampton as well, didn't he? So, and that's his only goal. So, although I would certainly sort of favour Ekitike on the side ahead of Isak, it's not like either of them are pulling up trees on the goal scoring fronts. So, having said all of that, I do want to see them both on the pitch.
Yeah, I quite like the idea, actually, of both of them playing. I suspect even if Isak plays, he's not going to play more than an hour, just a few days after he's obviously started at the weekend, and there's another game at West Ham at the weekend. But yeah, I quite like the idea of both of them together, particularly because Florian Wirtz, we don't think is going to be involved. I think that would be more difficult if you had to put him into the team for PSV and maybe put him on the left-hand side. That would make that more difficult. But yeah, I do quite like the idea of that, and absolutely 100% Dominic Szoboszlai's best position is in midfield. He should be in there for Liverpool. But I mean, even Dominic Szoboszlai is going to have a rest at some point in this hectic schedule. I'm not quite sure which game that might be best for. I think there is probably an argument that PSV at home in the Champions League might be one that you'd do it. Maybe it's a little bit too early in that run, but I certainly wouldn't want to see it come, say, in the Leeds away game or even the trip to West Ham. I think there's probably more difficult fixtures on paper coming up than this one. But yeah, there's quite a few decisions to be made here.
Well, I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, Liverpool are desperate for a win. So, in years gone by, we could say, like, yeah, good game to rest Szoboszlai for, or whoever that informed player is. Maybe it was Gravenberch or whatever. But he just needs to pick his best performing players at the moment. And if you've got a 3-0 win or a 3-0 lead or whatever, you can then look to make changes and rest players for a very important game at West Ham on Sunday. But I think he just needs to pick people who are in form. Unfortunately.
Yeah, there's not many.
He's got 11 of them.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, it's almost exactly the same with Isak and Ekitike, really. There's a sort of ideal scenario and then a more realistic, pragmatic scenario of, well, we're going to have to just do this and see what happens and go forward with that. But yeah, hopefully Liverpool look a little bit better against PSV. I suspect they will, because in Europe, as I say, the games are slightly different. Just to finish, then I'll get a prediction, not necessarily an exact score prediction from you for the PSV game, because I think that would be pretty difficult to come by for this game, given we don't know a great deal about them or indeed Liverpool at the moment. But are you expecting a response? Are you expecting a good performance from Liverpool? Are you going to be at the game? What sort of a feeling do you think you'll have when you go to Anfield on Wednesday?
I will be at the game. And I expect a reaction. They've come in for a lot of criticism. I think there's a few bruised egos now. And it's quite clear that patience is starting to run a little bit or wear a little bit thin with the current situation. So I do expect a reaction. One thing that I've maintained all season, regardless of how results has gone, is Liverpool have got a really, really good squad. You know, they've got very, very talented players. It's not like they've not got good players, is it? They have got good players, but the ingredients in the mix aren't quite working at the moment. And I think there will be a determination to put it right. So I'm still not convinced we're capable of keeping a clean sheet, but I do think we should have enough to get it over the line. So I'll go with a 2-1 win, with striking a note of caution about West Ham on Sunday instead. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yes, I'm sure we will talk one way or another, good or bad, about those two games on next week's podcast. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for this week and keep our fingers crossed that Liverpool look a little bit more like Liverpool against PSV in your
Matt, I can't let you go without getting your prediction.
Oh, yes, of course. Sorry, yes. I do think Liverpool will win. I actually said before the Forest game, I would give anything for the scoreline to be 2-0 on 60 minutes and for it to be easy. No, I didn't mean 2-0 to Nottingham Forest as it was, but again, I would give a lot of things for Liverpool to just be 2-0 up, 60 minutes, give themselves the last half an hour off, and me not have to rewrite my intro about 15 times in the last 5 seconds. So,
in an ideal world, if we could, you know, if it was. It would be the first time this season that Liverpool actually coasted to a victory, apart from Frankfurt, I think. But if the game was boxed after 60 minutes, I'd really like to see the likes of Ngamoa being given a run, maybe Chiesa as well. But I felt like Ngamoa offered something a little bit different that could have perhaps got at Forest on Saturday if he'd been introduced earlier, which is easy to say in hindsight, but you know, let's not forget he's such an exciting player, and we haven't seen as much as him as we were probably expecting after his heroics against Newcastle. So hopefully he gets a chance.
Yeah, I'll go 2-0 to Liverpool, but that is possibly more in hope than expectation, I think. But we will see what happens. Hopefully it is a bit more of a controlled and sort of dominant performance from Liverpool, which I think, to be fair, if they'd have gone 1-0 up against Nottingham Forest, it might have gone that way. The fact that they went 1-0 down completely changed it, and that's another conversation entirely that hopefully we don't have to come back to on next week's show. But I'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you to Rich for joining me, for you guys as well as ever for watching and for listening. We'll be back next week right here on the Blood Red channel.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.